Morning guys, I'm in one of the wadis in Muscat and I'm wandering around this morning. It's quite early in the morning, so about 7:30, quarter to 8, so not very early. Just looking at all the birds and trees and things and trying to find things along the way. So it's basically a little stroll through the area. What I have seen already is squawk herons, which might be Indian pond herons. They're quite similar. Didn't get a good look. Also purple heron, grey heron, red wattled lapwing. There's quite a lot of different birds around here, so it's pretty cool. Also a moorhen, which was really good. So a common moorhen. So a lot of bird life. You can hear a lot of birds chirping in the background and squawking. So I'm going to take a walk through this area and point out anything I find interesting. So here we've got some tall bulrushes, also known as cat's tails, or cattails. These are Typha domingensis, which is the local species here in Oman. They have rhizomes, which are horizontal underground stems, which can be used actually to make a kind of flower if they're dried out and ground up, and then the pollen from the inflorescence can be used as an added protein. If you look at the flowers here, I'm going to walk a bit closer as long as I don't sink in the mud here. This is an inflorescence. This is kind of the female part. The male part is on this part. It would have a lot of pollen. It's late in the season now, so now it's starting to fruit, and it will make these fluffy seeds, which can be used for fires, for friction fires. But what I've got here is the tip here. What happens is the pollen drops from the top and sprinkles down on the bottom with the wind, and that helps with pollination. It can be self-pollinated or cross-pollinated, depending on whether the pollen falls on itself or on a neighboring plant. So Typha domingensis, quite a useful sort of reed to be found in these parts, from the family Typhaceae. So it's not a grass species as most other reeds are, and it's not a sedge, which is a different family from the grasses, and it's not a rush, which is also a different family from the grasses. So yeah, there you have it, Typha domingensis. So just in the trees across the water here, in the date palms, I can hear every now and then a purple heron squawking. I think it's actually a fairly young one, or it's injured, because I saw it scramble into the bushes and it doesn't seem to be willing to fly. So it's either injured a wing, it's quite large, or it's a juvenile and just doesn't want to leave the area. In the water here, you typically find in these kinds of waters in the wadis in Oman, you'll find a lot of marine fish, which are diadromous fish that swim up the estuaries basically, and either live in the estuaries as adults and breed in the sea, or breed in the sea, or live in the sea and breed in the waters as adults, the estuary waters. Likely species to be found here: river goby, Awos fuscus, which is a bit of a mouthful, Aphanias dispar, which is a killifish species, or top minnow, Saprinodontidae, and is the family, and obviously a lot of mullet. You will find freshwater eels moving up a lot of the wadis, and various other species. But there are introduced tilapia species. I don't know whether they occur up north here in this part of Oman, but for sure in the Dhofar region there are a lot of tilapia species there. On the edge of the banks there, on the opposite bank, there are also sedges growing, which are different from the grasses. Okay, and if I pan across, you can just see a lot of date palms of various ages. Prosopis juliflora, the spreading acacia-like bush on the bank in the distance. But yeah, nothing much else here. So here we have a clear cat track. There are African wild cats in Oman, but this is more than likely a feral cat track. So here we have a feral cat track. They're going to be the same size, so it's going to be virtually impossible to tell them apart. Really, totally impossible actually. But yeah, you can see the clear prints, fairly round, sort of oval toe prints, and then the pad at the back. In cat pads there'll be two indentations at the back of the pad, if you have a very nice clear imprint in good silt or mud, but obviously you're not going to see it in this one. Yeah, there'll be a lot of other tracks here as well, so I'll point them out as we go along. Here's a lot of fairly open tracks. You can see there's a big open space between the toes. This could possibly be red wattled lapwing, one of the lapwing species. Not certain though, but it's a possibility. And this grass here looks like Spirobolus, which the seeds of which are said to have an aphrodisiac effect on rodents, believe it or not. And then there's some young date palm seedlings growing around here. You can see them right there. Okay, here's a great example of cat's tail that's basically ripened and produced all these seeds attached to this fluffy pappus. And so basically what happens is that once it's ready to seed, it bursts open like this, and you're left with this fluffy material, very good as a kindling for making fire. So if you wanted to make a bird's nest for making fire, this is definitely a good option. Takes a spark well, and as long as it's dry, of course, and it's a good way to make fire. Okay, this is a little hard to see with this camera, but there's a little Indian silverbill sitting on the cat's tail there, on one of the leaves. It's a lot of little birds, and they're tiny little birds, even smaller than sparrows, and tend to occur in flocks, and they are seed-eating birds. I'm hoping you can see it on this picture here. But anyway, Indian silverbill. Here are a whole multitude of tracks crisscrossing one another, a lot of large bird tracks, and I suspect that these are either purple or grey heron. Here you can see an individual track with the toes, 3 forward pointing toes, 1 backward pointing toe. I believe these are herons, and they've obviously spent the night here, hence the sort of crisscross pattern of all the tracks around here. So they obviously stay here among the trees and congregate at night time. You will find nocturnal birds in this area, including nightjars and also thicknees. In South Africa we call them dikkoppe, which means thickheads. But yeah, something that you would find moving around at night time, spotted dikkoppe or spotted thickney, but they will be motionless during the day and rely on their camouflage to avoid detection. Here we have what I believe is Panicum turgidum, related to Panicum maximum, the Guinea grass of southern Africa, which is very, very much preferred by white rhino for grazing and a lot of other animals. So Panicum turgidum is one of the grasses found here. This is Spirobolus down here again. You can see it growing over there. That was one that has an aphrodisiac effect on rodents. And then these date palms in the background here. You can see some of the old date fruits on the ground. There we go. So these are really old. They've dried out. Dates are obviously a very big part of the diet of people in this part of the world, and have been used for centuries by the people to make dates, date paste, and obviously for eating. Then we have some tracks here which I believe are probably dove tracks, because they kind of have a winding nature and the middle toe is kind of curved in a bit, so they're kind of almost knock-kneed when they walk. So, and they have a winding track because they're busy foraging. Yep, that's it. So here are some of the usual suspects for plants growing in wadis. We've got Erva javanica here, which I've mentioned before. Gets these soft fluffy fruits which are used for filling pillows. We've got Suada vermiculata, this bush over here I believe, which is a salt loving bush. We've got Spirobolus here. We've got Panicum turgidum there, Dipterygium glaucum right here with the yellow flowers. There are a number of plants that look like this, including Crotalaria aegyptiaca, and so it can be confused with that. Sometimes also with Ocrodenus, which is another species found in the area. We have a whole lot of sedges growing on the ground here, and yeah, and that's about it. Okay, here we have some dog tracks, wadi dogs. So they're basically feral dogs that hang out in the wadis. They tend to be nocturnal because they try to avoid persecution by humans. So you'll only find them wandering around occasionally during the day. Usually at night time they come out, and you can see this is an overstep track here. The hind foot over the front foot. Here's the back pad of the front foot, the pad of the hind foot, and then the toes there. So yeah, the looks like the left foot of the dog, left hind foot stepping over the front foot there. Yeah, and that's a sequence of tracks of a wadi dog. Also the cat tracks are around. There are cat tracks. Let's see. I'm sure I saw some cat prints around. Yep, we've got smaller prints here, cat prints over there. Right there is feral cats again, so quite cool. In the distance I've got sand partridge just ran across there. Unfortunately I'm a bit slow. There's one kind of in the foreground there in front of the bush, very hard to see. It's going back into the bushes there. Sand partridge, we've got a laughing dove on the bushes there. We have a lot of Indian silver bills around here. These are all Prosopis juliflora trees. Every now and then you can hear a rose-ringed parakeet. There's one of the sand partridge running across. Amaperdix hayi. Yeah, so this makes a nice refuge for the birds. Every now and then you can hear rose-ringed parakeets screeching. I've just seen some fly across. We might get them coming across now. No, they're flown in the opposite direction. But yeah, a nice refuge. A lot of the garden areas and also the wadis are refuges for a lot of these birds, because they provide shelter and also opportunities for feeding. There's a white-cheeked bulbul that was on the branch there, just floated away unfortunately. You can see some of the dune areas here. Listen to that. That's sand partridge calling. Okay, let me just zoom out here. That call, that fluty call earlier was a sand partridge. So quite a lot of birds around here. Here we have Heliotropium baxiferum, sometimes called string of stars, the white flowers. This is a less impressive flowering Heliotropium than many of the others. There's Heliotropium longiflorum, which is much more impressive, much larger inflorescence, but nonetheless interesting. And you can see the fruits developing over there. Heliotropium baxiferum. So I'm very close to some white-cheeked bulbuls. They're just in the trees here, and I can hear them muttering every now and then. There's one there. I don't know whether you can see that. No, it's gone off. This one is flown across there. White-cheeked bulbul. There you can see him. Not the greatest shot with this camera, it's a cell phone, but nonetheless, white-cheeked bulbul. So here's one of the tracks of the sand partridge that I pointed out earlier. You can see the three toes there, sort of sticking out there. So that's an Indian silver bill in the foreground. Tiny little bird. It's about 5 meters away from me. Very hard to get it. This is a great example of a winding track of a dove. You can see it kind of moves along like this and winds around. Definitely a dove. I'm not sure which one. One of the smaller doves, probably a laughing dove. There's a rose-ringed parakeet, Psittacula crameri. Not the greatest picture, of course, without a zoom lens, good zoom lens, but nonetheless it's still proof that it's there. And you find them typically in the town gardens, particularly amongst the date palm groves. So we've got an Indian pond heron up in front of us here. It's hard to see with the sun, etc., but Indian pond heron. A lot of birds around here. I'm going to pan across slowly. Some rose-ringed parakeets flying across there. So this is a nice little wetland area in the Wadi. Just pan out a bit. You can see some snags or dead trees standing there. Perfect for perching birds, especially also for birds of prey to use as a popular site. Looks like there might be two Indian miners up in the right hand side there. Yeah, nice little wetland area. Okay, that was a red wattled lapwing, and you heard one of them calling as it flew away. And a lot of Indian pond herons, or possibly squawker herons around here. I've seen grey herons and purple herons too this morning, so quite a lot of herons in this area, and it's understandable since the habitat is an aquatic habitat. This is a rather large specimen of Sodom's apple, Calotropis procera. It's massive. You can see it's got these very pretty flowers. It has a milky latex, highly toxic. Spoken about this before. The wood can be used as a friction firewood, and the milky latex is very caustic, highly toxic. You want to mess around with this. This plant is found in a lot of disturbed areas, and it's a common weed in many sort of desert and semi-desert areas. The dried dead leaves that you can see on the bottom there can sometimes be eaten by livestock such as cattle in times of drought, but usually it's not good for the animal to be eating this stuff. This very large bush reminds one of the tamarisk, Tamarix aphylla. However, it is not. It's Caligonum comosum, which has these sort of reddish winged fluffy fruits, which are apparently edible. So a very large specimen of Caligonum comosum, and attempts are being made to propagate these plants and others to revegetate areas. You can see in the background some Heliotropium baxiferum again, and yeah, a lot of dead bushes here too. There's Prosopis juliflora, an introduced weed, which was introduced for making charcoal and for wood, and obviously for browse for camels and goats. It's useful that way, but it takes over wadis, and you can see this is part of a wadi bed, and it certainly has taken over. So we have a fan palm, highly unlikely to be found. This is obviously an introduced plant, not likely to be found here in Oman. The only fan palm that occurs here is Nanorops richiana, which occurs further south in the deserts of Oman, towards Dhofar and the Dhofar governorate. So yeah, one of the fan palms, but definitely an introduced plant here. Here's a great example of a feral cat print. The front foot with the hind foot stepping onto it, or partially registering on the front foot. Definitely a cat, and that is probably the right hand front foot that we're looking at there. It looks like it. Yeah, and yeah, it's partially registered. Cats usually walk that way. They register
usually completely, especially when they're stalking. The back foot will register on the front foot. In other words, it will place its back foot exactly on the front foot, and that's just how they walk, to avoid detection, to avoid stepping on twigs and making noise. And then also over here, we've got something interesting. Here you can see these two tracks here. Those are the tracks of a passerine bird, and it's been hopping. That's a hopping track. You can see the 2 feet placed together, so it'd be hopping along. On the left, it looks like a dove track again. The middle toe is slightly curved in, and you can see there too. So yeah, dove tracks, and here's a very small passerine. This passerine could be possibly one of the Indian silver bulls that I've been pointing out. But very, very tiny track, and it's a hopping track instead of a walking track, which is what we've got on the left here with the doves.
Okay, here's another Sodom's apple, Calotropis procera, and we've got a huge grove of trees here of date palms. You can hear the rose-ringed parakeets in the background, and a lot of other birds flitting about, especially the silver bulls. There's a whole flock of them there. Great stuff. So there we have it. I've taken you through a little walk in this wadi, and shown you a little bit of what's around here in a few minutes that I've been here. It's starting to get really hot. It's not even 8:05 yet, so it shows you temperatures do reach pretty high temperatures at this time of the year. It is cooling down though. It's supposed to be going, it's already spring, autumn, and it's going into winter, but still quite humid today. Humidity has been dropping lately, but yeah, nice little walk around. I hope you enjoyed it, and join me next time.